Today I thought we could talk about skincare for teenagers. This is a feature I wrote the other day. It's my first ever feature for Elle, and my editor Amelia wanted me to look into, this whole teen surge that we're seeing at the moment and this real rise in interest in skincare from teenagers. Is it driven by a desire for anti-aging benefits, or is it driven by a desire for something else? Now, I'll be honest with you, I don't particularly think this is driven by a desire to have these anti-aging benefits, but what I will say is that my opinion of why teenagers are so hell-bent on using sophisticated skincare completely changed by the time I'd finished researching this piece. So let me just set the scene a little bit for you so you can understand the journey I went on and kind of how my opinion changed. When I first started looking into this, it was the height of this Sephora teens kind of stuff on TikTok where people were explaining, in particular people that worked in retail positions, were saying that teenagers are coming in, spending a fortune on skincare and really noticing that young consumers were buying things intended for adults. Now, I'll be honest, I'd made a snap judgment about this in the beginning. I was just thinking, surely this is a conversation between children and their parents. It's up to the parent to say, do you know what, that's too expensive, you don't need it, you're not having it. I couldn't understand how this had snowballed into stats like this, where skincare for tweens have risen by 196%, and an average US tween spending has grown by 23%. I was just thinking, surely this is really easily resolved at home, and I can't understand how we've reached this point. But then I spoke to Aaron and Rena, the founders of Elle, and they completely changed my perspective on all of this. When you're writing a feature like this, you've got to speak to loads of different people to essentially corroborate whatever the point is that you're trying to make. So I spoke to dermatologists, I spoke to teenagers, I spoke to parents of teenagers, and I wanted to speak to Aaron and Rena, the founders of Elle, because as the name would suggest here, it's created with teens for teens. This is a brand that was specifically made for teenagers. A bit of background for you. Aaron was the original founder of Feel Unique, which has since sold, now operates as Sephora as we know it. So if anyone is going to be in a position to give us the lowdown on Sephora teens, it's the person that founded Feel Unique, for 15 years developed it, had all of these business insights, then sold it on to Sephora. Hilarious, when I was trying to find photos for the video, when he went to Sephora's opening, he was the first ever customer, and also it was really nice to speak to him because, as a bit of a full circle moment for me, one of my first ever internships was at Feel Unique under Newbie, so I really enjoyed meeting him. He also has 2 teenage daughters, which again, there's all of these reasons why it feeds in together. Then we have Rena Hammer. Her background includes Soho House. She's part owner of the Urban Retreat in Harrods. Rena's mom is lovely Ruby Hammer, who I will never miss an opportunity to say how lovely she is. But genuinely, between all of these forces behind this brand, you have so many years of beauty expertise and knowledge, and it just felt like such a dream team. You can imagine then how lovely it was to hear that they actually have this listening group of teenagers that they consult for everything, and they make sure that teenagers are part of the conversation in creating this whole brand. Now, it was really interesting. They were explaining that in the build-up to making the brand, they had a listening group of over 2,000 teenagers in the UK and the US. And then they have this constant group going now. It's like a community where they can share what they're going to bring out and ask for feedback. And they were just really great about it. Like, they were saying there were moments where they were convinced that, say, one design would be really popular, and then they'd put it to the group and everyone would want something else. And essentially, I really remember this one point in the Zoom where I basically, your opinion just naturally comes out in the way you're having the conversation, isn't it? And I alluded to the fact that I just thought, is this being driven by everyone wanting something at school that everyone else has? And Aaron was like, it's really not that. He said it's very much driven by how people feel about themselves and wanting to feel better in their own skin. Just a quick note on the Elle products while we're here. I did try them, and it's a really lovely collection. It's not designed for my skin, my age, anything like that, But if you were looking for a relatively affordable range, very simple, easy to navigate to get for your teenager, I'd happily recommend this to you. So in the meantime, I wanted to speak to a dermatologist to figure out what the recommended routine is for a teenager, and I went to Dr. Mary Summerlad. Mary's on Instagram here, and I'd really recommend following her for really practical, useful videos. She goes into loads of detail about what you should be using, different skin conditions. She's just lovely, really easy to listen to. But basically, Mary gave me a full breakdown of what your teenager should be using. It's all in the feature. I'm not telling you in the video. Please go and click. And I know that's really annoying, but genuinely from my perspective, the more you would click on this feature, it's free to read. It just sends a message to Elle that they should come to me again. So please, if you could do me a big favour, do go and read it. Basically, I said to Mary, is anyone asking you about ageing when they come in? And she said, no, they're not, but it's skin conditions they're asking me about, like acne, psoriasis, things like that. And that's what's really driving this desire to have these multi-layered routines, which is also what Nikki Lily told me. I've purposefully chosen this picture of Nikki in her sparkly mermaid era. So Nikki's one of my favourite people I've ever met through my work. She is a creator she started creating when she was 8 and she's 19 now. So I really wanted to speak to her because I feel like she fits this really unique piece of this puzzle in that she has been a teenager creating a lot for teenagers. Her audience are different ages, but she speaks a lot to teenagers. And she's done so during the course of this complete change in trajectory of what teenagers are actually looking for. Now, Nikki was saying to me that definitely people are really interested in trending products and things that are new. And I said to her, will you show me what you use? So she's literally reaching across on the Zoom, showing me all her things. And her routine looked really similar to mine. We had like bits of Aveeno in there, La Roche-Posay. But interestingly, she keeps things really super simple and has a minimal routine. Now, Nikki said, and it felt like the perfect summary for the piece, she said, I feel like people are spending a fortune looking for a miracle cure, but if they stopped spending a fortune and just used a minimal routine, that would improve their skin so much that in itself would be the miracle cure. And that sentiment was really similar to what Amy told me. So Amy's 16 and her audience is largely teenagers as well. And I found myself in the back of a taxi with her probably about 6 months ago, and I just thought she was lovely. I've used this photo of her as well because she was doing this thing with the Diana Award and she's working with them to raise awareness for like bullying in schools and things. Two lovely, lovely girls. But Amy said the same, and she said she'd cut her skincare routine right back and she was going for like a really minimal routine. And I just thought, isn't it really interesting that this is two girls with the world at their fingertips? They both have literally millions of followers. There will be brands clambering over themselves to get products into their hands, and they both feel that this simplistic way of caring for their skin is the best. And interestingly, they both said, like Amy, for example, I remember she specifically referenced Glow Recipe and Drunk Elephant. They are the brands that their audiences want to see more of. So at this point, I've spoken to the girls, I've spoken to Aaron and Rena, I've spoken to Dr. Mary, I've also spoken to other dermatologists, or sometimes, for example, dermatologists will send you quotes. They'll have almost preempted what people are writing features on and sent you a load of quotes that might work for it. So for example, Dr. Sam Bunting, another brilliant doctor, had sent out this series of quotes that basically said, under no circumstances does a young person need this many steps, and please make sure that your young people aren't using skincare as entertainment. It's, you know, that's not what it's for. But my editor for the piece has specifically asked me to look into whether the rise in teen interest in skincare is about anti-aging or is it about something else. And another thing I forgot to tell you is, in an early draft of this, I'd spoken to different parents. Thank you so much, Sarah and Jasmine. Jasmine, I've changed your name. I'm sure you can figure out who you are. And like, I was asking them, are you concerned about this? What are your thoughts? And they both kind of said, do you know what? I wouldn't say I'm concerned. I would say that sometimes we have conversations where we disagree, but it's not something that particularly worries me. So I thought I'm going to run all this past Caroline. By the way, I've chosen this photo because she has just launched her new counter in Liberty for Skin Rocks. And actually, speaking of Skin Rocks, you know how she has the Skin Rocks app? When I spoke to her about all of this, she told me that the day they uploaded a teen skincare guide, which is on there, it's all free to access, by the way, she said that's the most downloads they've ever had in one day. Basically, Caroline hit the nail on the head and she said, listen, if this was to do with anti-aging, we all know that the main thing we get told to, you know, reduce the onset of fine lines and wrinkles is to wear SPF every day. And no one is asking the mum for SPF. That's not what this is about. She also said, and I thought this was really true, that we need to be taking teenage skin concerns seriously and knowing when it actually requires a trip to the doctor. Because the thing is, you can have the best routine in the world, and like, how often have I said this to you from a personal perspective, having my own rosacea? You can have the best routine in the world, but certain things like acne, psoriasis, rosacea, eczema, they might need a bit of further medical attention and help, and that could be the thing that helps you to really manage it. And when it comes to teenagers, we know that they do have a higher incidence of acne than perhaps other ages. So essentially, Caroline's words were, make sure you take your teenager seriously if they are presenting with skin concerns, but at the same time, just manage the expectation of what is and isn't appropriate to be spending, and also throw it back to them. Once they've got their own Saturday job, this is all in the feature, once they've got their own Saturday job and they appreciate how much work you have to do to get that one moisturiser, they'll soon figure out whether they actually want and need it or not. But to summarise, I loved writing this piece, and I think it really taught me a lot that this has been really positioned as a trend-led thing, that people just want the next exciting brand, and it's a bit deeper than that. It's really about young people wanting to feel as good as they can, and I really think that the way we get around this and figure out what's going on here is have more conversations and make sure that the young people in our lives are informed about what's best for them and feeling good in themselves. And then just a few suggestions from me if you're looking for a routine for a young person. One of my first places I would go for whatever your skin concern is La Roche-Posay. That's where an awful lot of my routine is from. It's one of my most trusted brands, and they have very solution focused products for everything. Brilliant brand to go to. Obviously, as the video and the feature would suggest, I'd really recommend Indu. They've really taken all of the guesswork out of everything that you would be wondering in terms of what is important and effective for a skincare routine for a teen, and it looks lovely as well. It will feel really nice for them. I'm also going to put Sally's skincare routine in here. Now, Sally would be the first person to tell you that she didn't design this range with teenagers in mind, but that said, the packaging is beautiful, it's affordable. She does have active ingredients in there that a teenager wouldn't need, but things like the balm cleanser, the gel cleanser, the choice of 2 different moisturisers would be really lovely and affordable for a teen. And then, as we discussed, if it's something that needs a bit more medical attention, you can use this Boots online doctor service where you send in photos of your skin and they can prescribe from there, post it to your home. And the last one would be Clearer. So Clearer is a really similar premise, but what happens with Clearer is you fill out a questionnaire, they will prescribe a formula to use as your night cream every day, and again they will, you know, look at all of your photos, go through all of these questions. They can tweak the formula as you're going along if your skin changes. Again, it comes to your home, developed with dermatologists. It's a really brilliant option. So yeah, I hope that was enjoyable. Thank you so much to Amelia as well, who had me for this piece to begin with. And if you enjoyed this video, please can you do me a huge favour and just go on to Elle and read it for me, because they'll see that everyone's read it and hopefully they'll have me back again. But have a lovely evening. Any more questions, feel free to leave them here, and I'll chat to you soon.